after iHeartMedia, you eventually did join a SaaS company, Algolia. And like, I think you joined like right in the crazy hyperscale mode, which must have been very different environment than iHeartMedia. Can you talk a little bit about like why you joined Algolia and what was the company kind of like at the time?
Yeah, of course. So Algolia was kind of like my underdog story. I knew at iHeartMedia I was falling in love with technology and SaaS in particular, and I just wanted to be a part of it. And so I moved out to San Francisco. I applied for all of these jobs in either ops or enablement. And I kept getting the same thing, like, no, you've never worked in tech before. Like, no, sorry, this is too technical for you. You won't get it. And then I landed this gig at Algolia, and I like have to say a huge thank you to like Anne Charlotte for believing in me and Jean-Louis Baffier for believing in me and like letting me try to do enablement at a tech company for the first time. Because it was the most technical product you could join. I didn't even know what an API was before I joined the company. Learned that really quickly. But it was such a fun like era of the company because, you know, it had had this amazing PLG start, and it was like we'd had all of this pipeline. And over the time that I was there, we really had to start to build for the first time a really strong outbound motion to start to hit the newer targets that were put upon us. So it was a fascinating time to join the company. And also I had never, while I'd done stuff at scale, I had never done it across a global organization where like 50% of people were in EMEA. And so it was just a fantastic opportunity to cut my teeth and learn how to do it at scale.
And so what was that first, you mentioned like outbound was kind of like your first, program you worked on. Like, what did that look like? Were you helping them come up with messaging? Was it more tooling? How did you sort of think about kind of giving people this like outbound playbook that they could run with?
Yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. Like, we hadn't really ever done like personalized. It was a lot of spray and pray at the time. And so it was like, okay, like, can we use intent? And how does that help us? How do we change our messaging as a result? And we just started to build out all of these different go-to-market plays with PMM. So it would be like, we have these amazing use cases we're starting to see in a very specific vertical, like pharmaceuticals. You can imagine searching for vitamins and all of those different medicines, and the search, if it's not great, you have a terrible experience because you don't find what you're looking for. And we solved that problem. And so like we would have like these like vertical plays that we would build into this motion. We'd have a hypothesis of what our TAM was, and then we'd go and see if our hypothesis worked with this play. And so it was a lot of like a science experiment, for lack of a better term.
Very cool. And it's funny. I mean, I'm still doing the same sort of outbound plays right now for Doc. Like, it's like a lot has changed, and some things never have changed, in SaaS. But I guess, yeah, now we have a lot more AI and technology, I guess, to make it a little bit even more personalized. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so Algolia was scaling super fast. And so I imagine sales, onboarding, and just ramping new sales reps must have been a very key initiative for the sales enablement team. How did you sort of think about building out Algolia sales onboarding program?
This was a really good, like, early learning for me. So, when I first went to build out the onboarding program, I went and did interviews everywhere, and I'm like, what needs to be in this onboarding program? And I just had this laundry list of like 100 things. And, I was trying to build almost like the perfect onboarding program, and I obsessed over it to a point that like nothing would get done. And I realized, wait a minute, like I just need to start with the bare minimum. And so I had to flip my whole, like how I've always built things to go to the field. Instead of it being this perfectionist process, it was something's better than nothing. And over time, that tugboat, if you can build the tugboat, it becomes the cruise ship and that world-class onboarding program. And so you start little by little. What's the most important thing they need to know in week one? They need to know why they joined the company, what the problem is that you're solving, and who cares about that problem. And so like I just started to build it in that kind of form. So like why we would have people like onboarding on week one, some of my team was building week two, and then like we'd put them through week two. And so we were literally building it as people were coming on board. And then over time we'd go, well, this was missing from that cohort, so we're going to go and build that next. And so it became a really awesome onboarding process just through constant iteration.
And how do you think about like the curriculum of an onboarding program? Like, what are you doing in week 1 versus week 2 versus week 3? Like, how do you sort of think about kind of ramping reps and slowly introducing them to, the new company, new product, all those things?
Such a good question. I think it's a misnomer to think that you can just squeeze everything into like 6 weeks and like they're ready to go. So, I started to think about, what do I need to push that like I really need to know like that they can talk about it and like make them care about it because it's going to help them. And I think about the outcomes of what we expect during a onboarding program. So like if we want sellers to be prospecting by week 3, what are all of the things that they need to know to be able to do that effectively? And so like I'll focus the content towards that milestone. And then like the other piece is, what are the things that like when you need to know how to make a recipe, you just need to know where to go to look it up and follow the instructions. And there's a lot of stuff like that we do in our day-to-day. Like people don't need to learn about building a quote in the first 2 weeks, right? And like building a quote could probably just be like a list of instructions, click here, then click here. And so I don't really need to do like a full live training for that. I just need to know that when they've got their opportunity and they're building that quote for the first time, it's there and they know where to find it. And so a lot of what I looked at when we're building onboarding programs is, what do I have to push and what can be a pull resource that they just need to know exists? And that's how I've continued to build onboarding programs now at all of the companies I've worked at.